Together, we have one common passion. It has taken much of our time and most of our energy. All of that we share. The rest are just details. The game is an enigma in the Canadian culture, a thing that cannot be explained in relative terms, because for each person, this thing, the game, has a different meaning. Yet, in some way or another, it has touched all of our lives at some point as citizens of this large, diverse landscape we call Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor as a hockey fan and as a Canadian to be defending Ken Dryden's autobiography, The Game. This book is much more than a cliched hockey narrative. It breathes life into history, makes you question your choices, and unpacks the metaphors surrounding our lives. This book is the best choice for the Trent Reads 2013 selection. This memoir is a personal history lesson from the perspective of one of Canada's greatest hockey players, netminder Ken Dryden of the Montreal Canadiens, who tells the tale of his journey with the team who won 6 Stanley Cup championships in a 9-year period. The author applies his own theory and commentary to the traditional hockey story, which allows the audience to delve deeper into the sport as well as themselves, because he has a unique way of manipulating his extraordinary circumstances as an NHL player into widely applicable life lessons. This is what makes this book so worthy of this year's selection, because not only does it narrate the culture and history of our nation, but it can also be acknowledged as a therapeutic piece of literature that is easily relatable for everyone. Furthermore, it is important to judge how this book relates to the diverse educational paths of students entering or already studying at Trent. I will not try to pull the wool over your eyes and claim that this text has a great deal of significance to the sciences. So be forewarned, Dryden does not discover a mathematical formula to achieve the perfect skating quality ice surface. Instead, he has a keen focus on history at a particularly interesting flashpoint in time, the 1970s. Not only does he relate the tensions of the Cold War through his critical analysis of the Summit series, but he also chronicles Canada's internal troubles by discussing the separatist movement. By focusing on this hot-button issue, he is able to include important topics like French language and politics, all the while sticking to his main theme of hockey by discussing the classic rivalry between the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the best thing about the game in our culture, because no matter how simple this sport may seem, the game always has a larger metaphorical meaning that relates to our personal and political lives. Most importantly, this book allows for the use of several different critical lenses, despite the overarching theme of history and hockey. Economics, politics, language, gender, culture, and geography can all be applied. The most crucial question to answer in regards to this memoir is why is this book the best choice for first-year students to read upon embarking their educational journeys at Trent? The answer to this question is, the game is filled with life lessons. Dryden has written about hockey, but more importantly, he has written about life. The novel is a diary of 1 week in the life of the author upon making his final decision to leave the Canadiens at the end of the 1978-79 season. He frequently mentions how his life is about to change and how he is going about making this major transition. Dryden, like many of us, is afraid of change. But this book itself is living proof that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Every chapter of this novel can be assessed as an anecdote of some kind to aid people in some way. Clearly, these are life lessons applicable to the situations of young or mature students beginning their studies at Trent, whether they are leaving home for the first time or making the big decision to return to school. These are major life-altering events that students share with Dryden. While reading this novel, I got the impression that Dryden was targeting an audience on a level of self-help, almost above teaching them about Canadian history or the game of hockey. The game of life is the most important subject that is unpacked within the pages of this book. Yet, this is still a Canadian hockey novel. Intermingled with the life lessons and the Canadian history tutorials are snippets of hockey action, which include superstitions, legacies, player analysis, and personal commentary on how the game is played. Dryden is able to articulate a level of culture that encapsulates the country and the Canadian hockey player as part of our national identity. He uses examples of the Summit series as his symbol of our national pride. But this is still applicable to this day. There can be no stronger example of national pride in recent memory than the Vancouver 2010 Olympic Games, when Sidney Crosby scored the golden goal. 26 million Canadians watched, which is approximately 76% of our total population. Hockey is our game, and Dryden makes it abundantly clear how closely this sport is bound to our country's character. International students will be able to see into our culture and our history by reading this novel like no other, because Dryden is able to capture our identity as Canadians as well as human beings. Finally, Dryden is an important figure in both hockey and the Canadian political and cultural sphere, who would create a lot of fanfare upon his visit to Trent. Not only did he win 6 Stanley Cups, 5 Vezina trophies for best goaltender, 1 Conn Smythe for MVP of the playoffs in his rookie year, but because of all of this, he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1983, just 4 years after his retirement. Yet, off the ice, he formerly served as an MP, and he is a member of the Order of Canada. Dryden is a well-written and beloved author who would be a lovely guest to our campus. So, whether it is the game of hockey or the game of life that intrigues the audiences of Ken Dryden's novel, The Game, it is clearly the best choice for the 2013 Trent Read selection. Thank you.